Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the sources you send us and really pull out the core insights. It's sort of your fast track to getting up to speed. And today we're jumping into a really interesting philosophical comparison based on an essay you shared. It's looking at Tetsuro Watsuji, the Japanese philosopher, and the German thinker Friedrich Nietzsche.
Yeah, and what's really gripping, I think, is this core tension the essay explores. It calls it an existential wager.
Right.
Basically, it's this choice, isn't it, between prioritizing your community's influence, that's Watsuji's angle, or going for this like extreme individualism that Nietzsche talks about.
It really gets to the heart of things. How much are we shaped by others versus how much do we shape ourselves?
Exactly. And the essay doesn't just keep it abstract.
No, it brings it right down to earth, throws out questions about, cheating or stealing or how you act in a disaster.
Makes you think about the real world impact of these big ideas.
Definitely. And just to set the scene, Watsuji from Japan, Nietzsche from Prussia, very different backgrounds, which, must have played a role.
Absolutely. So maybe let's start with Watsuji.
Good idea.
His main point, according to the essay, is that you just can't separate a person from their social and environmental context, their climate, he calls it.
Climate.
But we're fundamentally tangled up with our communities.
So let's unpack this key idea the essay brings up. Ningen. It's not just individuals, right? It's this deep interconnectedness, people and society linked through space and time, like an ecosystem almost.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And Watsuji saw this as, fundamental to being human. The essay points out he was actually pretty critical of what he saw as a pernicious Western individualistic approach.
Pernicious, strong word.
Yeah, he felt it missed this vital relational piece of who we are.
So for Watsuji, those big personal insights, the real aha moments, they don't happen in isolation.
No, exactly. The essay stresses this. They come from interacting, from being part of that social web. Understanding isn't solitary for him.
Right.
And the essay brings up an interesting point here. Japan's low crime rate, the kindness often shown to tourists. It's not proof, of course, but it sort of gestures towards a society perhaps valuing community in a way that resonates with Watsuji's ideas. Yeah. The power of that collective influence.
That makes sense. Thinking about how our actions, even small ones, might ripple out. Does Watsuji challenge that Western idea of individual rights being separate from community duty?
He definitely shifts the focus, and this is where it gets really interesting comparing him to Nietzsche. While Nietzsche was, taking apart traditional morals, Watsuji was doing something different. The essay says he was trying to build virtues, to weave morals together into a kind of universal ethic.
Building versus deconstructing, very different goals.
Totally different. And for Watsuji, this was tied into asserting the value of Japanese culture, trying to differentiate it from Western individualism.
Yeah.
So his work, the essay notes, explores ethics, human beings, society, existence, all through this lens of interconnectedness.
He really believed we're shaped by everything around us. Relationships, culture, even the land and weather.
Absolutely. The essay mentions his book, Climate and Culture, Fudoningen Gakuteki Kosatsu. That really digs into how our environment shapes us.
Wow.
And there's a quote in the essay from his Rinrigaku, his ethics, that hits this hard. He criticizes the misconceptions that ethics is a problem of individual consciousness only.
So thinking ethics is just about me is missing the point.
That's his argument. He felt that view comes from an individualistic way of seeing people in the first place. So their fundamental ideas about truth and reality were just different. And that impacts their ethics.
Yeah, it seems so. So for Watsuji, trying to understand someone just by looking at them alone, it's ineffective. You have to see the network they're in.
The essay gives that father-son example from Rinrigaku.
Oh.
It's not like you have a separate father and a separate son who then meet. Watsuji says the relationship, the fellowship, defines them. They become father and son through that connection.
Which is really different from a Western view of two individuals forming a bond.
Exactly. Think of his idea of Sanzai. It's not a fixed self inside, but the self existing in the betweenness, the connections. Your identity is shaped by interactions, not just existing separately.
Interesting. The essay mentioned Heidegger's influence on Watsuji's idea of authenticity, too, though it says we won't dive deep into that today.
Right, gotta stay focused. But it shows he was engaging with broader philosophical trends.
And then the essay throws in that Nietzsche quote. Kind of surprising.
Yeah, the one about being considerate of others' honor, even in private thoughts.
If we are not as considerate in our private soliloquies as we are in public, then we are not behaving decently.
And the essay argues Watsuji would actually agree with the sentiment there.
Because his whole ethics is about recognizing we're interconnected. Our thoughts reflect that too.
Exactly. The goal is to live knowing that connection.
Okay.
But then the essay points out the big split. Nietzsche saw morality as often suppressing our sort of animal instincts. Watsuji thought those frustrated instincts pop up when someone feels insignificant, disconnected from the community. It's about belonging, not just repression.
So, totally different views on where our basic impulses come from.
Fundamentally. Epistemologically, ontologically, how we know things, what things they're opposed. Watsuji bases values on human interaction.
Whereas Nietzsche felt values are often just pushed on us by others.
Something like that, yeah. Which leads back to Watsuji's Sanzai, the self as betweenness, sustained by the connections, the acts of Ningen.
Only applies to humans in this web.
And Watsuji, in Rinnergaku again, says you have to grasp the individual and society as this dual characteristic of Ningen. Can't just pick one.
Don't presuppose they're separate to begin with.
Right. And that other quote the essay includes is great. With regard to meaning whatsoever, we must examine its certificate of birth in the realm of understanding.
Meaning comes from shared human understanding. Okay.
Right. Now let's flip to Nietzsche.
The contrast.
Big contrast. The essay puts it bluntly. Nietzsche praises individualism. He saw fitting in with the community as well, herd mentality.
And passive nihilism. Ouch.
Yeah. So while Watsuji looks at the connections, Nietzsche zooms right in on the individual. The essay notes his fascination with our deep instincts, the ones working below conscious thought.
He wanted to get to the raw drivers of behavior.
Exactly. His project was about cultivating the individual, aiming for that Übermensch ideal, the person who goes beyond standard morality.
So he's trying to find the real motivators, maybe tear down old ethics, even cherished ideas.
Absolutely. Which, as we said, is so different from Watsuji trying to construct a universal ethic.
Nietzsche wasn't building a system for everyone.
No. The essay makes that clear. It's about the individual's journey. Solitude, self-reflection before really engaging with society. That intense self-work comes first.
And the focus is different too, right? Watsuji looks at the community benefit of what someone creates.
Whereas Nietzsche seems more focused on the individual's growth itself. The essay suggests he's less concerned about the means, as long as the end self-cultivation without harming others is reached.
The essay also mentions something important about reading Nietzsche, his style.
Oh yeah, metaphorical, poetic. It leads to a lot of debate about what he really meant.
Not a straightforward manual.
Definitely not. Unlike Kant, say, with his clear, you ought to do this statements, Nietzsche gives few direct commands.
No easy formulas. He rejected objective truth anyway, right?
Right, so no simple way to line up your thoughts and impulses perfectly.
Instead, the essay says he calls for this constant, tough reevaluation of values, calling convictions mental sloth.
Yeah, from human, all too human. He wanted us constantly questioning, digging deep into our beliefs.
And the essay mentions he even tried to sort cultures into higher and lower based on how they react to exceptional people.
Based on their psychological responses, yes. How they handle those who break the mold.
It also mentions that idea about overcoming our ape nature, striving for more.
A powerful idea, but as the essay rightly points out, one that's been horribly misused. Thinking of Nazi Germany, for instance.
Absolutely crucial context. And because he avoids easy answers, the essay notes readers often struggle to find clear solutions in his work.
Which was partly his point, rebelling against Schopenhauer's rigid system. But yeah, it can lead to seeming contradictions.
And it's fascinating that Watsuji himself studied Nietzsche early on, wrote a whole book, Nietzsche Kankyu.
Yeah, the essay says he was drawn to Nietzsche partly because he felt academics were ignoring real existential struggles, getting too comfortable with neo-Kantianism.
And that diary quote.
Oh, the authentic Japanese blood corresponds to Nietzsche one.
Yeah. It just shows the complex mix of influences on Watsuji himself.
It really does.
Yeah.
So, bringing it all together, we land back at this existential wager the essay frames.
Okay. The big choice.
Do you go for a life woven into the community, prioritizing those ties? Or do you carve out a path of radical individual design, like Nietzsche suggests?
And it might sound abstract, but the essay insists this stuff applies to real life.
Absolutely. It argues these aren't just philosophical games.
And it pushes back on the idea that it's too simple. Recognizing these existential crises, these moments of questioning, is vital.
And solitude versus community involvement are presented as maybe two different ways to deal with those crises.
Ultimately, the essay reminds us we have agency. We make choices about our path.
Which leads right to the questions the essay poses to you, the listener.
Right. Should you live a life of extreme isolation for the sake of personal cultivation?
Or should you sacrifice your time to live a life in vibrant participation with your direct community?
Big questions. No easy answers. The essay suggests holding both perspectives in mind when you face your own dilemmas.
Yeah. Understanding Watsuji and Nietzsche gives you like different toolkits, different ways to look at your choices and figure out how to reach your own goals.
So maybe a final thought for you to chew on, drawing from all this.
Okay.
Think about your own life. Those moments of quiet, personal reflection, when you were really alone with your thoughts. How much did those shape your core values? And then think about the moments of deep connection, when you felt truly part of something, truly linked with others. How much did those shape your sense of purpose? Which felt more defining? It really gets to the heart of this whole wager, doesn't it?